Hello, everyone. Welcome to Byte of the Week. It's your weekly digest of all the news from the past week in the world of tech, the Bay Area, and elsewhere. Anywhere that tech lives, I'll be covering it. So let's just jump right in. The massive story from this week, well, depending on whom you ask, the massive story for this week was about a massive leak from the website WikiLeaks, allegedly showing some tools that are used by the CIA to go about their spy activities. And this includes everything from like being able to hack smartphones, being able to hack smart TVs, and various basically surveillance tools. Now, and there's sort of been two sides to this response. So like one of them is, well, okay, it's a spy agency, so if you like got a dump of all their files, you'd probably expect to see a lot of spying tools. And on the other, the flip side of that, of course, was people saying, oh my gosh, like, this is like a, mass surveillance. The government's like spying on us, reading all of our whatever, getting in our computer, listening in on our smart TVs, things like that. And I think that probably the truth is that both of those are the case, In the past, this like Cold War era, kind of the stereotype of a spy, of an intelligence agency was like people in suits, running around crazy countries like with briefcase guns and things like that. And or like maybe, in modern times the stereotype is more like Jason Bourne and things like that. But the reality is that, a lot of spying doesn't like require a person to be physically at a place. It can be done electronically, and so it makes sense that the CIA has like invested so much into compromising the hardware that we use on a day-to-day basis. Now, the downside of that, of course, is that in that explanation, I've just sort of put it, or implicitly framed it, in a sense that they have the best interest of the country at heart when they're doing that. And at best, that is the case, but that may not always be the case. And if they're just mass surveilling the entire population, which we don't know that they are or aren't, that, well, raises some huge privacy questions. And furthermore, if there's something like this leak that could happen, who else might have this software? Probably people who don't have our best interest at heart. And so it's sort of been a challenging story to think through, like philosophically, how should we be responding to a reveal of this magnitude? So I'll have a link I'll have some relevant links in the description. The buzzword to look for is Vault 7. That's the name of the leak, and it comes from the website WikiLeaks, of course. So that was interesting, a very, very interesting read, and definitely like seeing other people's reactions, some of them positive, some of them negative, and so on. Now, one of the companies, of course, affected by it is Apple. The CIA has obviously put in a lot of resources into compromising Apple hardware because it's so prevalent. And it's something that they've clashed. Well, actually, it was the FBI and the CIA. The FBI and Apple clashing over like a backdoor access to iPhones and things like that. And Apple has sort of said, no, we're not going to give you a backdoor. But of course, they persisted and are continuing to try that. Apple released a statement saying, well, those were vulnerabilities, but they've been fixed, and so on. So you're hearing stuff like that from Apple, from Google, and whatnot. The truth is that we do live in an age where mass surveillance happens, and whether or not you're like comfortable with that is sort of moot. I think that if you are particularly uncomfortable with it, you need to stop using internet-connected devices. And if you do use internet-connected devices, you have to sort of accept a certain level of like state actors. I would not say good or bad in that case. State actors could be looking into your business. That was sort of the intense and potentially a little heavier news of the week, but the rest is a little more cheerful. There's a startup in Kenya that released a second generation of their internet hub. So the company is called BRCK, and they have this internet router that has the ability to support connections for up to 100 devices at a time, which is insane. So Africa is like notoriously a place that's been, very hard to reach with internet connectivity up to now, and this is an ongoing problem. And it's been interesting to see like various companies who are like heavily invested in spreading internet access to that part of the world. Facebook is one of the big ones. And of course, it's sort of like in the, from a marketing standpoint, they do it because, well, they want to look like humanitarians. But in reality, they've saturated their markets of developed countries. And so if they want to continue growing, they need more customers. And the logical place to look for customers in a finite world is just the place that doesn't have internet yet. So Africa has been this like huge opportunity. And I think that even if a company like Facebook is the one that provides internet ultimately, that, ulterior motive aside, it's still a huge chunk of the world that is getting internet access for the first time. And that's really huge. And that's very significant and meaningful for those people. I think that'll do a lot in the fight against poverty and in the development of those countries and the betterment of those populations. That's a tangent. The company is called BRCK. I will have a link in the description. I think it's pretty interesting. The price of the product is about $700 US. And, if you think to yourself, okay, well, $700, it's kind of expensive, but 100 connections, it seems like a pretty good thing. Maybe like each village could have one, something like that. Now, $700 for someone like myself, possibly like you if you're also here in the US or in a developed country, $700 is like a fair chunk, but it's not like, oh my gosh, so much. In Kenya, $700 is a ton of money. And in fact, it is about 60% of the median income for someone there in a year. I don't know what the US's equivalent number is, their equivalent median income, but it's many, many thousands of dollars. It's probably like, $20,000, $30,000. So to give you that like context for comparison, it's not just, oh, it's $700. It's a fairly vast amount of money for that part of the world. And so it'll be like interesting to see if, these companies that are very flush with cash, who have a strong incentive to like see internet access improve in Africa, $700 for them is nothing. They could buy thousands or millions, and it would be significant, but it would definitely be like from a business standpoint, very worth it. And so it'll be interesting to see like how these take off, how those companies' own initiatives take off. And I think it's a good time for Africa to be getting internet for potentially the first time. Now, although SpaceX has been in the news the past couple weeks, this week we're going to be looking at a company called Blue Origin, which, if you have been following this new space race between SpaceX and between Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos, the heads of the Tesla, Solar City, SpaceX world, and then Jeff Bezos, of course, on the Amazon side. They're sort of like fighting each other to make humanity a spacefaring race, which is awesome. I think that we're all going to benefit from that. And right now they're kind of like footing the cost on their own, just because why not? Because they're billionaires. And I guess if I was a billionaire, I would probably spend my money on spaceflight too. It seems like a good investment. The Jeff Bezos / Amazon counterpart to SpaceX is a company called Blue Origin. And one of the particular challenges that they've been working on is vertical takeoff and landing of rockets. And so the reason that this is important the reason that they've been chasing this is so that rockets can be reused easily. And so I'll of course have a link for the video so you can see it. Really, really neat. Just like watching a rocket like go up and then like land vertically, as opposed to landing in the water, which is pretty typical. The Byte of the Week wouldn't be complete without some Elon Musk related news. And so one of the big things coming out of his camp this week is from Tesla, actually, and they're going pretty heavy investing in solar technology and solar energy. One of the things that they've been working on is making a fully solar power plant. And the place that this debuted is in Kauai, and the big news story about it is that as it's operating right now, it will offset 1.6 million gallons of fuel, or the use of 1.6 million gallons of fuel per year, which is insane. And Kauai has a goal that they want to be 100% on renewable energy by 2045, and I think that this is definitely a step in the right direction. 2045 is still a ways off, but because that goal is so infrastructure heavy, it will probably require a lot of resources and effort and energy, pun intended, to actually meet that, even though it is still several decades away. And the last story for the week, I'm very excited about this. There's a company that I've been following for the past couple years called Bolt Threads. They're based out here in the Bay Area, in the East Bay actually. It's called Bolt Threads, and the premise of the company was basically like, hey, spider silk is very strong, very durable, very whatever. Wouldn't it be nice if we could harness that in some way in consumer products, whether it's clothes, whether it's gadgets, whether it's whatever. They've been doing research to make synthetic spider silk for years, and just debuted their first real product this week. It's a tie. It is $314, which is extraordinarily expensive for a tie, and they only made 50 of them, so it's going to be very extremely limited run. I might try to see if I can get my hands on one of those 50. It's going to be a lottery, so you can sign up if you want to. I don't know. It's a hard sell. $314 for a tie is a lot of money. The technology is very cool. They're talking about building the material, because they're like building the thread itself. It's being built from proteins. They can tune it in a way that optimizes for flexibility or for durability or for stiffness, or any number of properties that you might see in anything from fabric to phone cases to all sorts of stuff. So I think that the potential for this technology is unprecedented, and I think that it's at an unapproachable price point right now, but they're also still in their very nascent stages. I'll be very excited to see, as the next 5-10 years goes on, what this company does. So that's all for this week. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you all next week.